Hey, I'm Charles with Rocky Mountain ATV MC. Today I'm going to show you how to install a worn winch on your ATV. We're going to show you how to install this worn VRX 2,500 pound winch on a Polaris Sportsman 570. Now, this 2,500 pound winch is a great option for your standard size ATV. You can get them with a wire rope or synthetic rope, and the install process is going to be similar for pretty much any worn winch. The axon will be a little bit different because you have the contactor built into the winch itself, but other than that, it's going to be similar. So the axon, you're going to have a few less steps, but whatever winch you go with, you're going to need to have a mounting plate. So you can get the winch and mount plate combo, or you can get each piece individually. Now, the other thing you need to know is we're installing this hub wireless receiver. That just allows us to control the winch with our phone up to a 100-foot radius. So with all that being said, let's get started. To do this job, we have safety glasses, a test light, and if you have any winch besides the axon that has a contactor, you're going to need a drill bit. Other than that, we have the Tusk plastic rivet removal tool, and then everything else is just going to be common hand tools. For parts, we have our winch. So this is going to come with the fair lead. You've got a solenoid, a rocker switch, all your hardware, instructions, and the wiring. Now, we also sourced some zip ties. We want to get everything tied down. And then we have our mounting bracket, and optionally, you can get one of these hub wireless receivers. Now, before we get anything on the machine, we just want to show you how to wire this up because it can be kind of hard to see how everything goes once it's installed. So we just need a power and ground going to the contactor. We also have this short length of ground wire going to the middle terminal on that contactor. The green wire is going to be on the left to the rocker switch, and the black wire on the right. And then you're going to have two wires coming out to your winch, and all these are color coded. So obviously yellow to yellow, blue to blue, red to red. And the last thing you need to do is find a key on power source. You can use a test light for that, or if you have a 12-volt accessory, you can just splice this wire into that. The first thing you need to do is attach your winch to your mounting plate. Every mounting plate is a little different. Ours is a two-piece design, but that's why you want to refer to the instructions that come with your mounting plate as well as the instructions that come with the winch. You want to refer to these throughout the process. First thing we did is attach our fair lead to our mounting plate or mounting bracket. And ours, we ground the backs of the bolts off just to gain some clearance. After that, we can go ahead and attach the winch to this plate. Then we're going to loosely attach the 4 mounting bolts on the bottom with the lock washers. And once we have the other piece attached to this other half of the mounting bracket, then we can go ahead and tighten down all the hardware. Now, once you've done that, you can go ahead and get the front of the ATV ready. Now, over here at the machine, you need to gain access to where you're going to mount your winch. So some machines you're going to need to remove a front bumper. On this one, we're just removing a couple of plastic covers. With those out of the way, we now have clear access to our mounting holes for this mounting bracket. So we're going to slide the winch into place. We'll just snake this through the front. Be careful not to damage those terminals. Now we can install the mounting hardware. Before we mount up the contactor, I just want to show you how to wire this up if you're using the hub wireless receiver. So you've got the brown in the middle still. We're going to disconnect the original connection we made. Then we'll connect our brown wire, gives us a new spade. So we can reconnect our original connection. Then the green is going to be on the left side. And the white one is going to go on the right side. And we'll connect the black wire into that. The next thing you need to do is splice the red wire to key on power. Same thing with the rocker switch. So just do those together and then ground the black wire. The next couple steps are going to be different for the Axon winch because it has the contactor built into it. So essentially you're just going to run 2 power wires to your battery and then run the rocker switch, or the wires for the rocker switch. For us, or anybody that has a VRX or any other Warn winch, you're going to need to mount your contactor. Some people like to mount these down by the winch, but the whole goal is to keep this out of the elements. So we're going to find a higher location to mount this on our machine. So we've removed our rack and we have room underneath here to mount this contactor right by our fuse box. And we also have that bus bar, so it's going to be easy to make all the electrical connections here. Then we're just going to run the 2 wires down to the winch. So for this ATV, this is the best spot. It might look different for your ATV if you have the battery back towards the back of the machine. Maybe you want to put this right next to it or somewhere near that battery box, and it's just going to make wiring everything up a little bit easier. Now that we have our location picked out, we're going to mark where we're going to drill our holes. Just be aware of what's behind where you're drilling. Then we can install the bolts and tighten them down. The next thing you want to do is pick a spot for your rocker switch. So for us, we're going to put this just above this high-low headlight switch. And to do that, we're going to mount up the clamp. So the kit comes with 5 different bolts. These are the medium-sized ones we're using on the clamp. And for the upper side, we have this extender bar. And in between the bar and the clamp, we're going to use one of those special washers. And then the smaller bolt is going to go for the mount for that rocker switch. And in between this mount and that extender, we're using another one of those washers. Put another nut on there. And then we'll connect this mount to the rocker switch with the 2 small screws. Then you can position this where you want it and tighten all the hardware down. Now for us, since we're using one of these hub wireless receivers, we need to get this mounted up before we start wiring everything else. So to do this, you want to get this as high as you can on the machine, and you want to have easy access to this red button. For us, we're going to go in this same compartment area right by where we put the contactor. And once we've done that, we can start wiring everything up. Now the reason you want to have access to that red button is the initial setup for the app. You're going to need to press it. After that, this should auto reconnect, but if it ever does disconnect, you're going to need to use that red button again. The next step is to find key on power. So on our machine, we have a couple of orange wires coming out of the wiring harness right by the steering stem. We're going to test right there, but for other guys, maybe you have a 12-volt accessory plug right here. You can test one of those wires to find out which one is supplying the 12 volts. So we've grounded the test light out. We're going to turn our key on. It lights up when the key is on. So that's our 12-volt key on power. Once you've found that, you're going to want to take the negative cable or disconnect the negative cable from your battery, and that way you don't short anything out during the wiring process. All right, so to connect your key on power, we've got this red wire that is coming from our rocker switch. And if this is your 12-volt power source right here, you'd take your wire tap and press this onto that outer section, just like that. And then you can insert this wire until it bottoms out. And you're going to take some pliers, press down on the metal piece, and then pull the cap down and clip it into place. So that's one way to tap into a 12-volt power source. We're actually going to run a wire from this orange wire down to the bus bar, and that's going to give us a permanent key on power at our bus bar. So for our key on power, we're just going to add an eyelet to this key on power wire and hook it down to the bus bar. And by doing that, it's going to allow us to hook up the power wire for our Warn Hub wireless receiver. Now we're ready to run all of our wires. Now we're going to do this the same way we showed you on the bench. If you have any questions about that, you can go back in the video and refer to that setup we have, or look at your manual that came with your winch. Now, when you do this, you want to avoid any pinch points or rotating parts. And once you have everything routed correctly, then you want to go back through and run some zip ties and get all these cables tied down. And when you're routing all the wires, it's easiest just to try and follow the stock wiring harness. Now for these bigger wires that connect to the contactor, we're going to install the rubber boots. And since our power wires would really only need to go from here to the bus bar, we're just running the positive and negative cable all the way to the battery just to take up the extra length of these wires. Now, two things when you tighten these nuts down. You don't want to over tighten them. That's going to break the terminal. And you want to make sure that none of these wires, the metal parts, you don't want them touching each other. Then we'll put the rubber boots on at the bottom and hook them up to the color-coded terminals. And we can tighten these bolts down and make sure all the wires are tied down securely. Now that everything's tied down, we're going to switch the clutch on the winch to the unlocked position, and then we're going to pull the winch cable out. Then we're going to cut the rubber band and install our hook. You want to slide this pin out, reinstall it, and then you can bend the tabs on the cotter pin. Once you have everything wired up, you can reinstall any removed body panels, and you're going to want to verify that everything works correctly. And that's how you install a worn winch on your ATV. It's a similar process for pretty much any ATV. And if you need this winch or any other accessories for your ATV, be sure to get those on our website and subscribe to our channel for more helpful content. Thanks for watching.